back to Aham Center for Therapy, specifically our pregnancy series video. Today I want to talk about one of the most integral parts about the whole pregnancy and the parenthood journey, which is deciding and navigating your relationship with your spouse through the entire process. It is as much a man's journey as it is a woman's, and even though this factor may be overlooked simply by the fact that a woman carries the baby, I, as a therapist, want to shed light on that. I have seen that children who are born between couples who have a very good understanding about the topics that I'm going to share today, or have simply an extremely strong bond, are mentally healthier, emotionally more resilient, and overall more happy later in their life as adults. So without further ado, let's talk about the top things you and your partner should discuss either before trying to get pregnant or after you are pregnant. Let's go. So the very first thing which I remember talking to my husband about this whole thing was, do you want to have children? That was obviously the most basic one. And if yes, why? What are your motivations behind wanting to start a family? And do I find myself in agreement to those motivations? I think this is an incredibly strong foundation or a strong step to build that foundation for your child. The next thing to discuss is a related topic, which is, what do you think your parenting style would be, or what do you think you would be like as a parent? Now, of course, these things of you know more as you experience them, so it's not entirely possible to predict it in advance. But at least if you and your partner have an idea about how they would view or how they look at themselves as a future parent, I think it helps both of you to just bounce off of each other also in terms of complementing each other through the process. So this generally helps in building a sense of a complementariness between you and your partner, that okay, this is what he thinks he will be good at, this is what he thinks he may struggle with. How can I best bounce off of that? How can I complement that? In the sense that whatever he may be struggling, I can learn and I can prepare, and whatever I am struggling with, he will do his job of then following through with that. Secondly, it also helps to understand what your parenting styles are going to be like. Because believe me, once the baby is here, you would be surprised how many things you disagree on with your spouse. Right from what kind of clothes that you want to wear, how many pictures do you want to click of your baby, when do you want to capture certain memories. So these things, and then leading up to bigger things like disciplining your child and how do you want to express love to your child. What kind of hobbies do you want to introduce your child to? So it's a lifelong conversation then that begins essentially, but the starting of it needs to happen during the pregnancy process. One of the main things that me and my husband have talked about most frequently after we found out that we're pregnant is, how are we going to maintain our love and the fact that we are husband and wife first and parents later once the child comes here. I think I have had many conversations with couples who have now, reflecting back on the journey, maybe commented that we never realized, or we didn't realize when we just became roommates who were taking care of a child, and when we stopped doing the things that reminded us that hey, we are also best friends, we are also lovers, we are also husband and wife to each other, and that role is equally important as the role of parenting our child. So me and my husband, we always talk about how are we going to see each other through the chaos and through the difficult days. What are the littlest and the grandest gestures that we think we could do for one another to remind that hey, through it all, it's still you and me, and it's still who we were just when we met, and more so than that, we are now growing even as a couple, not just as parents. Now, these things don't need to be huge things that you plan. They don't always have to mean taking a night off, having someone stay with your child and going out on a date. But it could also be very, very simple things like hugging each other at the start or the end of the day, making sure that you have some form of physical intimacy even when the things are getting crazy. It could also mean sending words of affirmation depending on what your partner is responding to most. So you could also think about it like this. What are the things that are going to make your spouse feel loved, seen, heard, and appreciated through the good days and the bad days of rearing a child? And discuss this with your partner before the baby comes there. Make up a plan of action between you both, if that's something that you would like to do, about what your main receptors of love are going to be from your partner. and see how much of a difference it will make in your overall confidence of also approaching this journey with your spouse. The next one that I want to talk about is moving more towards your own mental health as well. It's incredibly important to ask your partner, are there certain things about your experience as a child that you had from your parents that you would like to repeat? Certain things that you admire that your parents did for you, and now looking back at it, you feel like they played a huge role in shaping who you are today. So are those things something that you want to repeat for our child? And similarly, are there things that you wouldn't want to carry on from your parents? So this conversation really helps to predict and also to some extent break generational loops of bad or unhelpful things that get passed on. So for me, I benefited heavily from the things that I want to repeat, because I realized then in that moment that I have a great foundation of parenting to start with, and that actually boosted my confidence. Perhaps one of the biggest things that I have seen couples struggle through is also when they are not clear in terms of how they are going to divide their roles. Now these roles could be your general household chore roles, they could be financial roles, and of course they will be roles regarding your child. So having a very open and a frank conversation about this beforehand, that what do you think what will be the areas that you will take care of, let's say when I am absolutely in the postpartum phase. So that's something that me and my husband just discussed over the weekend, that considering that I won't have too much energy and all my attention and time will be given to taking care and feeding our baby, how are you going to take care of the household chores? What are you going to do for the baby so that you also get a chance to connect with him or her? So these things gave us a good idea about how we are going to divide our roles, and I think that helps and goes a long way in minimizing confusion, minimizing misunderstandings of like, I thought you're going to take care of that, why is this not yet done, now we are going to have this problem because this thing was not done. So all of those little things that go on piling up and building when you're already sleep deprived, when you're already body and everything is adjusting to a new thing, they get avoided by this simple conversation beforehand. Next up, do you have any baggages that I should be aware of? Any trigger points that you may or may not have shared with me before, but now that we're bringing new life in this world, we need to be aware of those things. Again, this can go a long way to ensure good communication when you are actually with the baby. Let's imagine a situation where your patience has been stretched as much as it could possibly humanly be stretched. Your sleep has definitely taken a hit in the first few months or even the first few years of your child's life. Even in that situation, how can I best communicate with my partner so that there are lesser misunderstandings, more clarity and agreement as to what is supposed to be done? And a very huge part for all of this is good knowledge of what is going to set my partner off, or what is something that he is going to struggle with, and him knowing the same about me. So make it a point to discuss what the partner thinks might be very difficult for them to handle, either in pregnancy or post the child's birth. The next one is something which you will, I think, keep on discussing through the child's entire life. This won't be a one-time conversation, but an equally important one to be had in pregnancy, which is, what are my hopes for our child? What is something I want to teach our child? What is something I absolutely don't want our child to learn or don't have this habit as he or she is growing up? So my hopes and aspiration for our child, and how you and I can kind of agree to disagree on some of them, help each other to actually achieve them in some others of them. So what you're again doing is you're coming together as a team, brainstorming for that baby that's about to come, and then having a sound plan of action in your mind for the same. The last one is setting up ground rules between you and your spouse before the child comes, in terms of how you are going to be with each other when the child is around you. This is super important for 2-3 reasons. One, I think I have again had people come up to me and say that my husband or my wife said this to me or did not say this to me in front of my child, and I didn't like it. I felt like that was undermining my respect and my role in the child's life. So here are some examples of the ground rules that me and my husband have set, at least so far, before the child gets here. The first and foremost ground rule is that we are never going to raise our voice at each other in front of the child. If we have a disagreement, if we have a fight, we would be trying to have that in private, or if it is absolutely impossible to find a private time, WhatsApp communication is going to be our savior there. The second ground rule is, I think I would like my child to see that his or her parents love each other. So in the house that I grew up in, I found out quite later that that my parents also love each other, because as children you are so self-centered and your entire world revolves around yourself. So you don't have that comprehension that, hey, my parents were something to each other before I arrived on the scene. So it was, I remember, being a very confusing feeling for me to see my parents in that role. So that is why I want to kind of introduce this to my child, and my husband and I, we have set this ground rule ki we want to be affectionate with each other around the child. And then we kind of hashed out what our comfort zones and non-comfort zones are in that sense. Next ground rule is to always be on the same team in front of the child. Whatever disagreements we may have about the parenting that's being done, or that particular situation or decision, will be something we will discuss later. In front of the child, as he or she grows up, we will always have a united front. This really helps in avoiding favoritism, or it helps in avoiding later conflict in terms of, oh, but mom said this, but dad is not agreeing to that. And then children learn very fast who they can share certain things with and who they can't. So to avoid that, this is the third or fourth ground rule that we have set so far. Now I completely know that many of these things will not work out, that in the situation what happens is ultimately an imperfect part from both parents. So perfection is not something that we are trying to strive here anyway. In all our points that we saw today, don't get under the impression that just because you have these conversations, that's exactly how it's going to be. In fact, more than often, it's going to be that there will be some alterations. But yet, that doesn't mean that not preparing for it or just not thinking about it is equally a good option either. So make your plans, but stay flexible with them. Similarly, ground rules can go on altering, they can go on changing depending on different situations and just how your child is growing up and what his or her personality is. So guys, that brings me to the end of today's video. I hope that some of these points resonated, and if all of them did, brilliant. Let us know in the comments what else you have discussed with your spouse if you already have a child, or what you think you would like to discuss with your spouse if you are planning to have one. As always, I am Ishwari Marathe signing off for the time being. Do show your love for this video by liking it and sharing it, and keep coming back to Aham Center for Therapy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.